This is the Cotswolds People podcast, brought to you by Alastair James Insurance Brokers. My name's Alastair, and throughout this podcast, I'm going to be speaking with a variety of very special guests from the worlds of business, sport, music, literature, politics, and many more, all of whom have a connection to the Cotswolds area of outstanding natural beauty. Do please leave us a review or rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast to hear our latest guest interviews. This week we hear from Adventureman and double world record holder Jamie McDonald. Jamie's adventures include cycling 14,000 miles from Bangkok back to his hometown in Gloucester, running 5,000 miles across Canada without the aid of a support crew, and again a 5,500 mile cross-country spanning run across America, including desert temperatures of 50 degrees centigrade. Jamie has raised more than £1 million to charity and continues to give back through the charity he founded, the Superhero Foundation. In November 2019, he was awarded the Pride of Britain Fundraiser of the Year award. He's a best-selling author and travels the UK and overseas to speak at conferences, giving motivational talks and entertaining keynote talks across the world. Jamie grew up around the Cotswolds, being from Gloucester, something he's really proud of.
Yeah, no, I'm Gloucester born and bred.
And I'm sure just hearing that back, and I'm sure you've heard all those achievements regaled to you numerous of times. It is phenomenal. Do you, I guess at times like this, ever think back and think, wow, have I done all that?
It sounds a bit daft, really, isn't it, when you're reading it out like that, Alastair? But it's just like a memory now, just a nice memory. And the weird part is where you kind of block out all the tough times. Like, yeah, no, it's great. Had a great time.
You've met some amazing people as well along the way. I guess a lot of that is what's kept you going in some pretty dark times, I imagine.
Yeah. I remember on the last adventure, I was running every single night for about 3 months in the Arizonian desert. It was probably about 55 degrees in the day, so it was just impossible to run in the daytime. It was completely barren. So I had to run at night, even though it was 40 degrees. And for about 2 months, I was kind of going at it. And then I stayed in this fire department in the middle of nowhere during the day to sleep. And then when I woke up, they were closing down, so I had to leave. So I got going. I started running through the night. It got to about 1 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't seen a car all night. This car kind of drives up and drives past me. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's quite, like, it's nice to see something. But then I hear it turn around. It starts driving back at me. And I'm like, humans. And then it pulls up next to me and the window goes down and it was a woman. And she said, and she was acting all awkward. And I was like, you all right, love? And she said, I don't know whether to tell you or not. And I said, you go for it. I'm sure it'll be fine. And she said, right, well, are you running that way? And I said, yep. And she said, okay, well, I think it's best that I let you know that where we just drove and where you're running, we spotted on the side of the road a mountain lion. I said, right, well, what does that actually mean? And she said, I'm not really sure. And I said, well, I'm not really sure either. And then she said, right, well, I think it was best that I'd let you know. Okay, well, good luck, bye. And then just drives off.
And what do you do with that information?
Exactly, Alastair. What the hell do you do with that? So I went into like pure panic mode. I started to think maybe I should run back to the fire department. But I mean, it was another half marathon back. And in the end, I just thought, right, well, there's nothing back there. It's closed anyway. And I'm going to have to run this stretch. So I need to just go for it. So I took out the biggest, meanest penknife known to man that would have probably done more harm to me than the mountain. and then I got running and I had my head torch on and it was pitch black apart from the head torch. And of course, then as I'm running, I'm just listening to the desert. And Alastair, I don't know if you've ever listened to the desert.
I haven't, no.
It's like every single noise wants to kill you. So every time I heard like a rustle, I'd quickly look left and look right in pure panic. And an hour went by, and then I spotted something on the side of the road where I heard a noise. So I looked, and I thought, no, it can't be. And then I went up closer, and I was like, it really is. And there was a big, massive tarantula on the side of the road. So I forget the mountain lion, Alastair. I am petrified of spiders.
As am I, yeah.
And so I thought, right, well, I need to capture a video of this because I was doing vlogs along the way to help with fundraising. So I went over and I put my foot next to it because I wanted to capture the perspective and the size of it. I mean, it was half the size of my foot. So I put my foot down, but the tarantula must have heard the vibration because then it turned around and then started chasing me. And I was going, ooh. So that was it. I was off. I started pelting, screaming my head off, right? No one could hear anyway. But as I started to run, it got even weirder because I saw another tarantula and another one and another one. And literally they were all across the road. So I'm screaming my head off. And as I'm pushing, I had a pram. His name was Caesar. I was pushing it. I was actually hitting them. I was like, bang, bang. Oh, you could hear that. You could almost hear like the crunch. I'm pelting it. In the end, I just pelted it all night until sunrise. I mean, it was dark. I mean, it was a dark night, and I made it into this tiny little town, and there was a cafe, and I walked in, and of course, I got my superhero costume, my Adventureman suit, which I always wear day and night. I've actually got it on now. Actually,
have you?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was going to be video or audio, so I thought, no. So I'm in this cafe, and then this guy comes up to me and goes, "God, it looks like you've had a rough night." And so I explained about the mountain lion, and he said, bloody hell. And then I explained about the tarantulas, and I said there were hundreds of them. And he said, "Wow, you're kidding me." He said, "Do you know that's really rare to come across like a nest like that?" He said, "There are people flying around the world in search of that. You're really, really lucky."
That is incredible. I mean, are you a lucky person? Do you believe in that sort of thing and fate and all of that sort of stuff?
That's a good question. I think I'm definitely I play it by like a happy-go-lucky kind of way, really. But I think, that's not me trying to do that. I think I'm naturally not really a planner. So I kind of just roll with it and then, ultimately believe that everything's going to work out. And so far it just about has.
I mean, I get that impression that a lot of your challenges, one sort of leads to the other. I guess, when you did your first world record attempt, that was just on the back of your first challenge as well, that you just kind of fell into it almost 3 weeks later, was it you attempted it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about kind of striking while the iron's hot, isn't it? I felt like I had 5,500 miles in the bank of running for a year across America. I kind of felt like I'm maybe in a position then to attempt kind of probably one of the toughest endurance challenges of then running 7 days on a treadmill to cover the most amount of miles. But I'm realistic as well. I recognise that if I was going to jump and start that, there was a really good chance that I might not make it. Yeah, but you could say that was quite well planned, really, to clock up 5,500 miles training to start it.
That is pretty good training. I mean, when your first challenge, obviously your bike ride, so it's a bit, that calls it a bit of a disservice to call it a bike ride, isn't it? But you bought a second-hand bike, didn't you? And sort of 50 pounds and off you went. Is that right?
Yeah, about 8 years ago, I was saving up to put a deposit on a house, and I saved up £20,000 of my own money, and it was a huge amount back then to me. And I went to sign the papers, and right at the last minute, I just got this gut feeling in my stomach where I was like, something's wrong. And I don't know if you ever get those gut feelings, Alastair.
Yeah, I think we all do, don't we?
Yeah, and in the end, I just listened to it, pulled out, and then I took time out of my life. Actually, I stopped working. I was tennis teaching, and I just thought, what's life all about? There's got to be more. There has to be more to life. And with that kind of notion, I ended up going back to Gloucester Children's Hospital just to kind of see the work they do. And I went in and I met loads of kids and I left and I just had that overwhelming feeling of there must be more to life. So I scrapped the house. I didn't buy it. And instead I bought a terrible bike for 50 quid out of the newspaper. And then I got in touch with the hospital and I said, look, I've come up with a daft idea. I'm going to cycle 14,000 miles from Bangkok to Gloucester, and I'd really like to kind of give back for all the help that you've given me. And I don't know if you know, Alastair, but I spent most of my life in hospital as a kid. I used to have a rare spinal condition called shringomyelia. So I had immune deficiency, epilepsy, and then sometimes I couldn't move my legs. So I spent a lot of my early years in hospital. But yeah, I was quite lucky. When I was probably about 9 years old, my mum, she put a piece of string in the back garden. She said, Jamie, do you want to play tennis? And I remember feeling like, not really, Mum. But I went out there and I started cracking the ball, and I just got this love for movement. And over the space of a year, my symptoms just kind of gradually eased, and I'm lucky to say that I've been kind of healthy ever since.
No, that's fantastic. And you mentioned your mum, and obviously on your YouTube videos and everything that you've done, your mum and obviously your dad as well, they're incredible, aren't they? They've been a massive support to you. They seem incredible people.
Yeah, I mean, you might see my dad cycle around Gloucester. He's got a big, massive beard, and he's got his bike, and he just pedals around in a pair of shorts, and he does it through summer, but he does it all the way through winter as well.
When you did the Pride of Britain and, deservedly winning that, obviously you took your dad with you to that, and he seemed, I'm not sure who was more excited, either you or him, backstage enjoying that.
Yeah, it is one of those moments, isn't it? I took Mum to the Pride of Britain quite a few years ago, and then this time I felt like it was Dad's turn, and we hit the red carpet. My dad was honestly like a little kid, and you've obviously seen the vlog, Alastair. And as he was going down, every single celebrity that was walking by, he just couldn't help himself. I mean, it was like the biggest stars, Simon Cowell, all sorts. But one of them was Ryan Giggs. And so he comes down and he goes, oh my God, Giggs. He goes, we've got to get a picture with you. And Giggs is like, well, okay, great. And he goes, I can't wait to get a picture with you, Giggs. He said, my mate is the biggest Liverpool fan ever. And then Giggs walks off, just eyeing my dad up. What are you on? Have you been taking drugs? I'm like, Dad, please tell me he's a Man United player. He goes, minor detail.
It's all football. I mean, as well, you've done so much as well. So with the current situation, what are you doing are you climbing the walls back at home at the moment? How are you dealing with being cooped up?
Good question. Yeah. I guess I'm just kind of going with the flow of it, really. I mean, it took a few weeks to kind of wrap my head around, is this actually happening? And once I kind of wrapped my head around, the world kind of felt as if it slowed down. And it's obviously really, really sad with what's happening to people and businesses and people's lives. From my side, I think all my work's kind of, stopped because I do speaking at events, and it's slowed down, and I'm actually really enjoying it. I'm actually spending time with my girlfriend, who I love dearly. And then, we're doing walks on the hill, listening to birds, and we're just being.
Anna, you're referring to, she's equally an adventure person like yourself, isn't she?
She is, yeah. I met Anna about 5 years ago, and she was attempting to run across New Zealand. She knows how to do this stuff as well. She makes me look like a wussy, really, Alastair.
Really?
Yeah. Well, her latest adventure, she ended up, you may have seen it in the news, she ran across Britain. She's the Girl Guiding Ambassador, so she was kind of meeting all the girls and doing talks along the way. But she'd done the entire thing, 100 marathons, completely and utterly barefoot.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Goodness me. And you dressed for the occasion at the end as well, I saw.
I did, yeah. I wore a brownie outfit at the end of her adventure. I thought, right, let's do it. But the thing is, it was one of those Amazon jobs. And so I didn't really know what I was going to get. Anyway, I got it a few days before her final day of the run. And then when I got it and opened it up, we were just about to leave the house. It was the final day, so I didn't really have time to check. And it was like one of those like saucy outfits, that you get for your partner, where it was a short skirt. Oh, Christ, it was supposed to be for browners.
No, and you mentioned obviously about in terms of your work drawing out. I know you do a lot of motivational speaking to, I guess, a variety from corporations down to sort of charities and schools. Do you find, is there like a common theme in terms of people don't realize perhaps what they're capable of, that you're able to relay that message to people?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, with speaking, you kind of go with the flow, really. You end up chatting to, the teachers, or you speak to the people that are organizing events in the businesses. And it's finding out what the challenge within that business or people is, and whether that's, they've had a big, massive change within the business, or they're just needing more motivation. So it's kind of working out what it is. A lot of the things that I'm asked for is just resilience, really, just to kind of be stronger, to kind of get over hurdles. So then it's about, cherry picking the right stories for that. So it's case by case kind of talk, really.
And I think people need, especially at the moment, I know a lot of people are finding it difficult, aren't they, in terms of obviously worried about people that might be affected by the illness, or like you say, they're not able to work. Do you think it's obviously an opportunity now for people to use this time to try and find a way out in terms of pushing themselves to the next level, or trying to find an alternative? How do you think the best way of dealing with this sort of situation if you are feeling low or feeling down?
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it, really? I guess if everything's dried up, then now I think is a cracking time to gain perspective and getting time out. I mean, one of the best things that I've ever done in the last 8 years was taking time out from my job to think about what is more to life. But then B, also, whilst you do these adventures, you end up kind of spending that time where you gain more perspective again. So I think it's good. You can get on the old hamster wheel, can't you, where you're just working morning to night, and where does it all end? So I think, getting that time out is hugely important, and the simple things. Do you ever do yoga, Alastair?
I don't. I know a lot of people do and swear by it, but I haven't done it, no.
Okay, yeah, that's one thing I've started to do over the last kind of year, like breathing, like really hard breathing, and it really relaxes your kind of your vagal nerve, like on the inside, and it calms you and you think clearly. So if there's anyone that wants to get a bit all yoga-y, then I'd definitely recommend that.
I mean, there are a lot of positives as well coming out of it. I mean, we've seen with the fundraising that Captain Tom Moore's been doing, I think over sort of £25 million for the NHS, and also a real community spirit. I feel like perhaps people don't normally talk, we're all sort of, like you say, wrapped up in our own little worlds, but you do see so many examples of communities coming together through this, don't you?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, what about Cat Did Tom? I mean, he is something else, isn't he? I love this because I love fundraising, and he just went against the grain. A bloke that's supposed to be using the NHS and actually draining their resources, that age, 99 years old, and yet he's doing completely the opposite, doing laps in his garden. I mean, it's just, that stuff at the minute just lifts me and it brings me to tears.
It's incredible, yeah. And I mean, I read your book and reading about your stories that when you were doing your challenge across Canada, I mean, it's amazing you would be able to go and knock on people's doors, and people driving past would help you out. I mean, that is real community spirit, and it's fantastic. And I wonder if this, obviously it's a really bad situation, whether we will see more perhaps of people coming together in situations like that.
Yeah, no, you know what? There is something special. I think the Canadians, especially when I ran across the country, I really felt a huge community spirit out there. I guess their population's down, so it's smaller towns. But I remember one of the first towns that I came across, And I'd been running for about 2 weeks, and it was pretty lonely. It was really early on in the adventure. I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to survive if I just do this on my own. I saw this house in the distance, and I thought, bugger it, I'm just going to do it. So I went over and I knocked on the door, and this woman answered, and I was like, hi, I'm running across Canada at the minute. I was just wondering if I can camp on your lawn. But in my brain, I was thinking, please let me in. And then this woman, she said, no, you can't. Off you go, will you, boy? And I was like, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't want to disturb you. And she said, well, who are you anyway? And I said, well, I'm kind of running and stuff. And she said, right, well, just wait there, will you? And then she went off, and she came back 5 minutes later, and she said, right, now I've just Googled you and you're real. And so she let me set up my tent. And then she came back out 5 minutes later again, and she said, stop setting up your tent. There's a motel and a key waiting for you, and it's all paid for.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just hope with so many things like this that there are positive stories, that will come out of this. And has it given you time to think about what your next adventure is going to be?
Oh, I am allergic to running and the dreadmill, should I say? Yeah. So I think the last kind of big run across America and the treadmill, I'm actually now, getting that time of perspective. I was rushed off my feet with loads of speaking events, but that's all gone, it's looking like for this year, really. So, but that's okay. I'm in a very lucky position where I'm not kind of suffering financially. So I'm going to take that time out for perspective. And if you can get that time without being so under pressure, then can't recommend it enough.
I guess maybe in time a joint adventure with Anna. I've seen a couple of things that you might consider doing. Is that would you like to do a joint adventure? Do you think you would work well together? Or was it like one of those things where some would say, oh, we can't work together, it would be a nightmare? How do you think you would get on an adventure together?
Yeah, it's make or break, really, isn't it? Go with your partner on an adventure. But Anna joined me on some stints and ran with me in America. And one of the first stints that she'd done was up in Oregon. It was really, really mountainous and hilly. Of course, we're pushing, Caesar, this pram, and it's really heavy. So as soon as you hit a slight hill, it's tough going. And it was quite early on, so I wasn't very well conditioned. And she came out, and me and Anna, we never had like an adventure together where we actually had to push each other. We were trying to run a marathon a day. And on our first run, we're going up these mountains, and I was just being blown out. I can't do this. And then every time Anna would be like, right, just give me Caesar. And it's really weird. I don't know why she does it, but when she runs with Caesar, she kept sticking her ass out like a rhinoceros. So I kept taking the mickey out of her, being like, right. So she'd be pushing it. And then every time we got to the bottom of a mountain, she'd be like, hey, give me Caesar. It's rhino time. And then she just launch up the mountains. Yeah. I've met my match.
It would be really difficult because a lot of your adventures, I guess, you'd have been pretty lonely. You had a lot of time to yourself, and to do it with someone would be completely different. And how did you find that time on your own, just sort of when you're out doing adventures and it's just you're deep in your thoughts? Is there a place that you take yourself? Do you listen? You listen to music to perk you up? How did you get through that time on your own?
That is a good question. So I would say, luckily, I don't know if do you run or cycle, Alastair?
Yeah, I used to do a bit of cycling. Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. So when you cycle, and if there's any other one listening out there who've moved, it's almost like when you're moving, it's like driving down a motorway, and as you're driving, suddenly 30 minutes will go by, and you're like, oh, where have I been? How long have I been driving? So I always called that kind of getting in the flow. And if you can get in the flow, whilst moving, your brain can just go to magical places, and you're not trying to think, it's just subconsciously. And whether that sorts out a problem in your life, or whether that sorts out, you being a bit more of an opportunist to make money for your business, or, whatever it is, I just find if you move, if you let your brain just go to where it needs to go subconsciously, then you're in the flow, and normally, life just gets a bit easier when you're doing lots of problem solving.
Sounds like great advice, Jamie, and I think one we could all do with at the moment. Well, I really appreciate you talking with me today, Jamie. It's been really good to hear some of your stories, and perhaps, if people are struggling a little bit, just to a bit of motivation for them to crack on and try and see a better and brighter day.
Brilliant. No, I've loved it, Alastair. Thank you very much for having me on.
There were some incredibly motivational words from Jamie in there, and he really is a fantastic example of being able to win against all the odds, which is clearly something many of us are trying to achieve right now in these challenging times with the coronavirus pandemic. So hopefully that will have helped as a bit of inspiration to you. Do please join me next time when my guest is the CEO of the greenest football club on the planet, as described by FIFA, Henry Stalins from Forest Green Rovers. This podcast was brought to you by Alastair James Insurance Brokers of Cheltenham. We provide personal insurance for high-value homes and contents, including fine art, collectibles, jewellery and watches, and for commercial insurance, a variety of sectors, including commercial property, liability and construction. Visit our website, ajamesinsurance.co.uk, and see the link to it in our show notes, or follow us on all the usual social media channels to find out how we can help with all your insurance requirements.